The waiter tapped his spoon against the glass, and the room slowly quieted. Soft music played. Candles flickered. Silverware gleamed under warm lights. Our children sat at the table. Friends smiled. Family leaned in. 25 years of marriage. That's what they were celebrating. My husband stood up, straightened his jacket, and lifted his glass. He smiled at everyone. Then he smiled at me. And said, "I want to thank you all for being here to celebrate new beginnings." New beginnings. I felt a strange chill crawl up my spine. He continued, confident, calm, practiced. After a lot of reflection, I've realized that sometimes staying honest means being brave. Tonight, I want to introduce the woman I'll be spending the rest of my life with. The room went completely silent. Before I could even breathe, a woman stood up from the far end of the table. Young. Poised. Wearing the bracelet I thought I had lost last year. My husband turned toward her and said, "This is Claire. Not a woman. Not someone. Her name." That's when I understood. If you've ever had the ground disappear beneath you in public. If someone tried to rewrite your entire life with a toast. Stay with me. This story is for you. My name is Raina. And this is how a celebration meant to humiliate me became the night my husband lost everything. We met when I was 22. He was charming. Ambitious. The kind of man people trusted easily. I built a life around him. Not blindly, intentionally. I raised our children. Managed our home. Supported every career move. Moved cities. Paused my own dreams so his could grow. I didn't disappear. I invested. That's why the anniversary mattered to me. Not because of flowers or speeches. But because it represented survival. Or so I thought. The signs didn't come suddenly. They arrived quietly. He started guarding his phone. Smiling at messages he wouldn't explain. Calling work stressful while coming home energized. He criticized me more. "You've changed," he said. "You're not as light as you used to be." That's what men say when they want to justify betrayal. Back in the restaurant, no one spoke. Our daughter stared at her plate. Our son looked at his father like he didn't recognize him. Claire stood there, frozen, waiting for applause that never came. My husband finally looked at me. "I wanted you to hear it from me," he said. How generous. I stood up slowly. My legs didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. I smiled, not because I was okay, but because I understood something he didn't. "Congratulations," I said. The room exhaled in confusion. "On your honesty," I added. He looked relieved. That relief was his biggest mistake. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. Plain. White. Unlabeled. "I was going to give you this later," I said calmly. "But tonight feels appropriate." I handed it to him. He laughed nervously. "Raina, now's not." "Open it," I said. The room leaned in. He opened the envelope. And everything changed. His smile vanished. His hands started shaking. Claire took a step back. "What is that?" she whispered. My husband didn't answer. He couldn't. Because inside that envelope was the truth he thought I'd never see. "I won't tell you what was in it yet," But I'll tell you this. That envelope wasn't written in anger. It was written in patience. And patience is far more dangerous. He stared at the papers like they were written in a language he didn't recognize. The room stayed silent, but not the comfortable kind. This was the kind of silence that presses against your ears, the kind where everyone knows something terrible is happening but no one knows where to look. My husband's fingers trembled as he flipped the first page. Then the second. Then the third. Claire leaned closer, her voice low and panicked. "What is it?" He didn't answer her. He couldn't. Because what he was holding wasn't emotion. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a dramatic goodbye. It was evidence. Years of it. I had watched his face so many times over the last few years, smiling, lying, reassuring. I knew every expression he wore. But this one? This one was new. Fear. People often assume revenge begins the moment betrayal is revealed. They're wrong. Mine began long before that night. It began the first time I felt something was off and chose not to confront him. The first time I noticed he deleted messages and pretended it was a software glitch. The first time he accused me of being paranoid for asking simple questions. Instead of arguing, I observed. Instead of demanding answers, I started collecting them. Quietly. The envelope he held contained copies of hotel reservations, dates that lined up perfectly with his business trips. Credit card statements showing dinners I was never invited to. A lease agreement for an apartment I had never seen. And tucked neatly at the back. A legal document. My signature. Dated 3 months earlier. His eyes finally lifted to mine. What is this?" he whispered. "It's the part of my life you didn't think I was smart enough to prepare for," I replied calmly. His mother spoke for the first time that night. "You knew?" she asked me, stunned. "Yes," I said. "For a long time." Claire's face had drained of color. "You said you were separated," she said to him, her voice cracking. "You said everything was handled." He snapped back without thinking. "I was handling it." The room reacted instantly. Gasps. Murmurs. Someone let out a sharp breath. I smiled faintly. There it was. The truth always slips out when people panic. I took a step forward, my heels echoing softly against the restaurant floor. "For clarity," I said, addressing the table. There was no separation. No agreement. No honesty. I looked directly at Claire. There was just a man living 2 lives, and assuming the woman who built one of them would never notice. Claire's eyes filled with tears. She wasn't my enemy. She was collateral. My husband slammed the envelope shut. "You planned this," he said harshly. "You waited for this night." I nodded. Yes. The simplicity of the answer unsettled him more than any accusation could have. "Why?" he demanded. "Why here?" I looked around the table, our children, his siblings, friends who had watched our marriage grow. "Because lies survive in private," I said. "But truth needs witnesses." Our daughter stood up abruptly. "How could you do this?" she asked him, her voice shaking. "On our anniversary?" He reached for her hand. She pulled away. That small gesture did more damage than anything I said. The restaurant manager approached cautiously, sensing the tension. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Yes," I replied before my husband could speak. "We're just finishing." I turned back to the table. "You can stay," I said to everyone. I'm leaving. I picked up my coat. My husband stood too. Raina, wait. We need to talk. I met his eyes one last time that night. No, I said softly. You need to read. Then I walked away. Outside, the night air felt cold and clean against my skin. My phone buzzed before I even reached the car. Messages. Calls. Missed calls. I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because the story was no longer mine to explain. The evidence would do that for me. By the next morning, the family group chat was silent. By afternoon, his sister called me in tears. I didn't know, she said. I swear we didn't know. I know, I replied. By evening, my husband sent one final message. You didn't have to destroy me. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed back. I didn't destroy you. I stopped protecting you. That was the moment everything shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But permanently. Because once people see the truth, they can't unsee it. And my husband was about to learn what life looks like when the audience no longer believes your performance. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It never does. At first, it came in small, sharp pieces. The morning after the anniversary dinner, my husband didn't come home. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know where he belonged anymore. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table like it was any other day. The house felt different. Lighter. As if it had been holding its breath for years and finally exhaled. My phone buzzed. A message from him. We need to talk before people start getting the wrong idea. I almost laughed. The wrong idea? I didn't reply. By noon, his sister called again. Then his brother. Then an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. The same question wrapped in different words. How long has this been going on? Did you really know? What's going to happen now? I answered calmly. I knew enough to protect myself. That sentence traveled faster than I expected. 3 days later, he showed up at the house. Not angry. Not confident. Careful. He stood in the doorway like a guest waiting to be invited into a life he no longer owned. You humiliated me, he said. I didn't raise my voice. You humiliated yourself, I replied. I just didn't stop you. He stepped inside without asking. Claire had already vanished from his life. She stopped answering his calls. Blocked him everywhere. Once the fantasy cracked, she realized she wasn't stepping into a new life. She was stepping into consequences. He sat on the couch, head in his hands. I never meant for it to come out like that. Of course you didn't, I said. You meant to control the timing. He looked up. I wanted a clean exit. I nodded slowly. And I wanted the truth. That afternoon, I met with my attorney. The envelope hadn't just been symbolic. It had been strategic. Inside were documents that mattered. Proof of marital asset misuse. Evidence of overlapping timelines. Records of financial deception. Messages contradicting his claims of separation. My attorney looked through everything carefully, then looked up at me. You're protected, she said. Very well protected. I didn't feel victorious. I felt prepared. The legal process began quietly. No public statements. No dramatic accusations. Just filings. Just facts. And facts don't argue, they accumulate. A week later, his workplace called him in. Apparently, some of the expenses he claimed as client dinners matched the same hotels and restaurants listed in my documentation. Accounting doesn't care about emotions. Numbers don't lie to protect feelings. He was suspended pending review. That was when panic finally reached his voice. That night, he called me. "I'm losing everything," he said. I listened. "I didn't think you'd go this far." I replied calmly. "I didn't think you'd plan a future with someone else and announce it at our anniversary dinner." Silence. Then he said the sentence that told me everything I needed to know. "You could have handled this privately." I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "You handled it privately. I corrected it publicly." The family stopped inviting him to things. Birthdays. Dinners. Holidays. Not because I asked them to, but because trust, once broken in front of witnesses, rarely heals quietly. People didn't take sides. They took distance. One evening, our daughter came over. She sat beside me on the couch and leaned her head on my shoulder. "I don't recognize him anymore," she whispered. I kissed her hair. "That's because you're finally seeing him clearly." She didn't cry. She nodded. And in that nod was something stronger than anger. Acceptance. Weeks passed. Lawyers spoke instead of us. Emails replaced conversations. The man who once toasted to new beginnings now struggled to explain old lies. And I watched all of it without stepping closer. Because distance was my final boundary. The last time we spoke before the settlement, he asked me something quietly. "Do you hate me?" I thought about it honestly. "No," I said. "I just don't recognize the version of me who tolerated you anymore." He looked down. That was the moment I knew. The power had shifted completely. The settlement arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. No drama. No ceremony. Just an email from my attorney with a subject line that read, "Finalized." I opened it slowly. Not because I was nervous, but because I was ready. The agreement was clean. The house stayed with me. The accounts were divided the way truth divides things, fairly, finally. The hidden expenses were acknowledged. The lies had a price. He signed without contest. That told me more than any apology ever could. He asked to meet one last time. Not to argue. Not to negotiate. Closure, he said. We met in a quiet cafe halfway between our old life and whatever waited next. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller. Like a man who had spent too long pretending. "I didn't think you'd be this calm," he said. I wasn't calm, I replied. I was clear. He nodded, staring into his cup. "I thought love meant excitement," he admitted. I didn't realize I was confusing chaos with meaning. I didn't correct him. Some lessons need to be learned without guidance. "Do you regret it?" he asked. I thought carefully. "I regret trusting someone who needed an audience more than integrity," I said. "But I don't regret how it ended." He swallowed. That night, the toast. I thought I was finally choosing myself. I met his eyes. "You chose yourself long before that," I said. "That night, you just stopped hiding it." He didn't argue. That was new. When I left the cafe, I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. Finished carrying explanations. Finished rewriting memories to make sense of someone else's choices. Finished shrinking my instincts to keep peace. The quiet after betrayal isn't empty. It's spacious. Life didn't transform overnight. It softened. Mornings became slower. The house felt like mine again, not shared, not negotiated. I painted the walls the color I always wanted. I opened windows and let light stay. I returned to things I'd postponed. Books I never finished. Walks I never took. Silence I never allowed. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It settles. One afternoon, months later, I received a message from Claire. Short. Careful. I didn't know the whole truth. I'm sorry. I read it once. Then replied with a single line. I hope you find something honest. I meant it. Because anger had no space left in me. People sometimes ask if I'd do anything differently. If I'd confront sooner. Leave earlier. Protect myself louder. The truth? I did exactly what I needed to do. With the information I had at the time. And when I had more information, I acted. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Here's what I know now. Silence can be strength when it's intentional. Truth doesn't need drama to survive. You don't owe grace to people who weaponize honesty. And dignity is the one thing betrayal can't steal unless you hand it over. I didn't win because I exposed him. I won because I didn't let his choices rewrite who I am. If you've ever been blindsided in public, if someone tried to turn your life into a performance without your consent, remember this. You don't need to outshine lies. You just need to outlast them. My name is Raina. This wasn't revenge built on anger. It was justice built on patience. And it gave me back my life. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever been underestimated, publicly humiliated, or quietly betrayed by someone you trusted, remember this: staying calm is not weakness. Patience is not surrender. And dignity is a form of power no one can take from you. Sometimes the strongest response isn't shouting your truth. It's standing still and letting the truth speak for itself. If you have a story like this, share it in the comments. Your voice matters. Like the video if you believe quiet strength wins in the end. Subscribe to Revenge with Raina for more stories about justice, resilience, and reclaiming your power. This was my story. And if you're listening, you're stronger than they ever realized.